Hey everybody, namaste, and welcome to our practice. This slow flow class explores the hamstrings. In our typical modern postural yoga practice, what we normally do, we tend to use a lot of the front of the leg. Our quadriceps muscles, these big muscles in the front, and then our hip flexors, the muscles that tie the leg to the torso. What we have a more difficult time engaging in using, or even sort of feeling a lot of the time, are these hamstring muscles, the muscles on the back of the upper leg. And these muscles are very important because they help to stabilize the pelvis in its more optimal position. If you think about it, these muscles help to pull down the back of the pelvis at the same time that the abdominal muscles in the front lift up the front of the pelvis. So if you find yourself with what we call an anterior tilt, where you're kind of tilting this front of the pelvis forward, the hamstring muscles help from the back to stabilize that. So let's get started. We're going to need a couple of blocks if you have them, and if not, we can work without them. And I'd also like you to have a table or a chair for one exercise that we'll be doing midway through the practice. Let's begin standing at the front of the mat. We're going to start moving, see what we can notice before we work with the hamstrings, and then we'll see what changes after. So to begin, as you stand here at the front of the mat, take a moment and see if you can drop the weight into your heels a little bit more. Notice if it's difficult for you to turn off the fronts of the legs. Do you feel like your quadriceps muscles are sort of always on? You might also feel like they're always tight or you're always stretching. So see if you can drop the weight into the heels a little bit. And when we do that, we're asking the hamstring muscles to work. It's okay if you can't feel that. We're just sort of seeing where we are for now. And then take another moment just to check in and see, how is your body today? How's your mind? What are you working with? And maybe to set a little intention for yourself in your practice today. Let's take one more breath in and out here. And then we'll add some movement. Reach your arms up overhead here and fold forward. Come into an easy standing forward fold to start. Now, I brought my hands to blocks. You can if you have them. It doesn't really matter for this part. What I'd like you just to notice is, what's your awareness of the back of the leg? Do the hamstrings feel tight? Does it feel like you're easily able to fold forward? Maybe you can even touch the floor, but the hamstrings still feel tight. Just noticing, just seeing. A lot of times the biggest experience we have with our hamstrings is a feeling that they need to be stretched. And from here, slide your hands up halfway. We're going to bring them right to the knees or somewhere around there. Bring your chest forward a little and round your upper back. So not normally how we do it, but we're going to do Ardha Uttanasana right here. Instead of thinking about reaching the spine forward, think about pulling your belly button toward the ceiling so you're rounding your upper back. And then as you inhale, see if you can breathe into your mid and lower back. And on the exhale, stay here and feel how the abdominal muscles help to support that back rounding. We'll take 2 more breaths here, inhaling and exhaling. And it's okay if this is difficult for you. Remember, we're just exploring. Keep a little bend in the knees, and we'll do 1 more here, inhaling, rounding. And on the exhale, emptying, and then slide your hands back down. Step your right foot back behind you and lower the right knee to the floor and come up to a low lunge. Pause for a moment here and see what you notice. Do you feel your hamstrings at all? Don't worry too much if you can't. We're going to keep working on this. I just want a little check-in to begin. Now let's reach the arms overhead if they're not there already. And we'll take a little twist to your left. So your right hand comes to the left leg and the left arm reaches back behind you. Look over your left shoulder. Breathe in here. And on the exhale, lower your hands back down to the mat. Bring your knees down. Let's take a few rounds of cat and cow. As you inhale, round your back. So the same position we did earlier in that half forward fold. And on the exhale, let yourself move back through to neutral. Maybe even into a back bend. Inhaling, rounding the spine for cat. And exhaling, tilting your pelvis. And see how you can feel when the pelvis tilts forward, there's a little more of a stretch in the back of their legs. Let's try that 2 more times, inhaling to round. And on the exhale, as you tilt your pelvis, can you feel the backs of your upper legs stretching a little bit more? It's okay if you can't. Remember, we're just looking. 1 more time here. And then back through to tabletop. From tabletop, lift your left hand 1 inch away from the floor. Lift your right knee 1 inch from the floor. And feel how your body is working to stabilize you here. You might feel that your abdominal muscles kind of switch on automatically. Good, set that down, and we'll do opposite hand, opposite knee. Nice, set that down, and then press back either to child's pose, if that's something your body likes, or maybe back into downward facing dog. If you do choose downward facing dog, you can pedal out the knees and maybe just check in and see what you notice in the hamstrings, since that's the focus today, and this is a position where people often do have some sensation to explore there. Remember, stretching is different from strengthening, although you can do both at once, but not talking about that now. So the feeling of your hamstrings stretching is going to be a different sensation than your hamstrings working, for the most part, in most cases, at least for what we're doing today. Now from here, drop the knees back down to the floor. If you're in child's pose, come to tabletop again. Step your right foot back behind you and pause right here. The toes are on the floor. Think about pulling the shoulders away from the ears and then lift your right toes 1 inch away from the floor. Can you feel your right hamstrings working here? Maybe keep your right knee right where it is, but try bending your right knee. Now, for many of us, what just happened is we moved into a back bend. We dropped the belly button. So if that's the case, lift your belly button back where it was, keep your spine neutral, and think about bringing your heel to your butt without changing the shape of your spine. Good, maybe the hamstrings are doing a little something there for you. And then step your right foot forward. We're back in the lunge. Reach your arms overhead. And then take your fingertips down to the floor or to blocks. And let your right knee bend so much that maybe the right knee comes forward of your ankle. Of course, if that causes you any pain or difficulty, then keep it back. But if you bring it forward a little bit, see what you notice. And then keep the knee forward, but walk yourself up to the top of the thigh. Can you feel anything through the back of your right leg? Just notice what's there. And then bring your fingertips back down to the floor or blocks and step forward. Slide your fingers up to around the knees and then keep the knees soft as you round your upper back. So it would look a little funny if someone were to kind of walk in and see you. They might think, oh, she or he or they are doing yoga in a weird way. But this is just a really specific way to target some abdominal muscles and some breathing techniques. So rounding the lower back here, inhale. And then on the exhale, fold forward. Keep the knees bent and see what you notice in the backs of the legs as you come up to stand. Reach the arms overhead. Slide the hands through the heart. Good, let's keep going. Arms reach up. Weight in your heels if you can. Fold forward from here. Lift up halfway, fingers to the shins or knees. Round the upper back. Make it a little bit different. Keep the knees soft. And then hands down, left foot steps back, left knee down. Come up to the top of the lunge and don't worry about where everything is right now. We're just kind of playing and noticing this first round. Do you feel either of your sets of hamstrings, the right or the left? Reach the arms overhead. They're not there already. And then move into the twist. Take your left hand to the right knee. Reach your right arm back behind you. Breathe here. Notice if you feel wobbly. Notice if it feels a little unstable. And then back to center. Lower your hands down. Step your knee back. Okay, in tabletop, lift your right hand and your left knee 1 inch from the floor. Feel what that wakes up in your body. Left hand, right knee. Do that a few more times. Alternating back and forth and just feeling. And then step your knees down, hands down. Step your left foot back behind you and pause. Think about a neutral spine. So it's not cat, it's not cow, it's in between. Keep that as you lift your left toes just 1 or 2 inches away from the floor. Now you may feel your glutes working, your butt muscles working. Notice if you've dropped into a back bend and see if you can stay neutral through the spine. And then mindfully begin to bend your left knee only as far as you can without changing the shape of the spine. Some of us won't be able to go very far here, and that's okay. Some of us may feel like we're about to cramp or are cramping. That's okay. Keep breathing. Good. Left knee down. Again, down dog or child's pose. Take a couple of breaths here. So not moving quickly, but doing some kind of intense exploration in between. From your downward facing dog or from your child's pose, coming back to tabletop, step your left foot forward to the front of the mat. Bring your hands to blocks or the floor, and then bring your left knee forward of your left ankle. So I'm coming all the way to my toes. That's okay in my body. It doesn't cause me any pain. Keep your knee where it is and walk your hands up to the top of the thigh. Can you feel your left hamstrings here? It's okay if you can't. We're just looking. Take another breath here. And maybe try turning your belly button a little bit more toward your left knee and see if that changes it. And then hands down, step your right foot forward to meet the left. Slide your hands up the shins, round your back. Keep the shoulders away from the ears, but round the back. That might be a little hard. Fold forward. Keep the knees bent. See what you notice in the backs of the legs as you rise to stand. And slide the hands through the heart. All right, I've actually started to sweat just a little bit. Working strongly and intensely can really generate some heat, so don't be surprised. Arms come up again, weight in the heels, and fold forward. Lift up halfway, and then this time we're just stepping right back to tabletop. And then from here, let's make our way to lie down on our back. So a little transition here. If you have blocks, have the blocks at the end of the mat. We'll have one under each foot, and we'll lie down with the knees bent. If you don't have blocks, if you can elevate your feet on something, that's great. If not, no problem, keep them on the floor. You could also do this with your feet on a wall and the knees bent in this 90-degree position, so that works really well too. Whatever you're doing, please make sure that your whole foot is pressing down into the surface or is able to press into the surface. So it's okay if your toes are hanging off your blocks, but make sure your heel is on. Now, with your feet, with your heels, gently begin to pull back as though you were trying to drag your heels toward your hips, but don't actually move them. So this is an isometric contraction. As the heels pull back in the direction of your pelvis, can you feel the muscles on the back of your upper legs working? Can you feel your hamstring muscles working? As you do that, see if you can keep your front of the legs soft. So hamstrings are pulling back and the hip flexors and quads are relaxed. Now, you may feel a little shaky. Rest anytime you need to. In fact, let's all take a little rest here and maybe shake it out a little bit. For some people, this will feel like a little bit of brain confusion, like they don't know how to do it quite right, or it might feel like you get it and then you lose it. You get it and you lose it. That's really normal. Stay with it and it's going to change pretty quickly. The next time you come back to this practice, it'll feel really different. Even if you do hamstring work in the gym, using your hamstrings in this way is really different, so you may be surprised. All right, let's come back in. Your whole foot is pressing into the surface. You're pulling your heels back. Wake up those muscles in the back of the legs. You can touch them and see if they're working. Yep. And then see if you can pull them back and make your tailbone a little bit light. So it's almost as though your hamstrings are working so efficiently that your tailbone starts to float away from the floor. Now at the same time, you may notice that your abdominal muscles are working a little bit. So your mid-back is pressing into the floor. Your tailbone is light. Your glutes are soft. So take a moment and check that you're not squeezing your butt. If you are, come out. and come back in? And then can we be light in the quadriceps and in the hip flexors? So I'm feeling right now the backs of my legs, my abdominal muscles, but my glutes are relaxed, and my quadriceps and hip flexors are relaxed. Good. Rest if you haven't already. Woo. If you're just holding there and breathing, it can take a lot. So let's do one more set here. Gently begin to pull the heels back. Make sure your toes are on the floor so you're not lifting up from the heels, but the whole foot is pressing down. That's important. And then begin to pull the heels back, float the tailbone, and breathe. Breathing in this way helps your brain to recognize, like, okay, this is an okay thing to do. We're safe here. Oof. If you're finding it difficult to breathe, that's okay. See if you can make it a little easier. Maybe back off the intensity of the engagement a little. And again, repetition is what's going to help this get easier and easier. And I promise this can be really transformational. This is important work. Good. Rest. Let's move the blocks off to the side if you were using them. See if there's any movement your body's looking for. Can you feel the backs of your legs? All right. From here, transition, we're coming to tabletop. And then from here, step your, let's see, yeah, we'll do right. Step your right foot back behind you. Pull your shoulders away from the ears. Can you feel your right hamstrings in this position? So you may be accustomed to feeling your abs in this sort of half plank position. You may be accustomed to feeling your glutes, but can you feel your right hamstrings? If you float your right toes off the floor, can you get that feeling of, oh, the back of my right leg is holding me? Good. And if you want to work here, hold and reach your left arm back behind you, so we're challenging balance. Make sure the right shoulder blade is pulling down and that you're gently pressing down through the inside of the right hand as well, so you're not rolling to the outer edge of the palm. Notice if you've started to arch your back, stay neutral through your spine. Good, and then lower down, pause and breathe. To do these things really well takes a lot of muscular engagement and a lot of brain power. So rest when you need to. And I'm going to say to you that unless you've done a lot of this work, if you're finding this easy, there's a chance that maybe you're missing a piece. This is often, it takes a lot. These are not habitual things. Left toes step back behind you and pause. Can you feel your left upper back leg? Can you lift your left toes? Now it's difficult to touch the left leg to see if it's working. Of course that's true. But see what you can notice, see if you can feel it at all. And then right arm maybe reaches back behind you. Check in with the left shoulder. It's going to want to creep up to the ear, so keep it down. And then check in and make sure that your left toes are still pointing downward and that you are not arching your back as though you were doing cow pose. Right hand down, left knee down. Whew. Pause, one breath in and out. And then come into a downward facing dog briefly and see if you can feel the backs of the legs a little bit differently. So my hamstrings right now feel a little bit like a spring. It'll stretch out. If I straighten my legs, the spring stretches, but as they're bent, I can feel the power and the potential of these muscles in the back of my leg. Now, you may not feel that at all, obviously. I'm just telling you what I'm noticing. And I'd like you to see what you're noticing too, even if it's not much. It's a good place to start. From here, right foot steps forward, lower the left knee down to the floor. Come up to the top of your right leg and see if you can find your hamstrings. It's okay if you can't, remember, so don't stress. One way we might work with starting to find them here is to think about pulling your right heel back. You know how to do that, right? Touch the back of your right leg, see if you can find it working, and then relax it and see what it's like, soft, and then ask it to work again. Good. To find the left hamstrings, we might think about pressing the left knee into the floor. And then remember that feeling of bending the knee, almost like what was it like when my heel lifted toward my butt? And see if you can find those hamstrings there. Take a breath here, reach your arms overhead. And then we're coming into the twist. Left hand to right leg, right arm reaching back. Can you feel your hamstrings working to stabilize you here? Take a couple of breaths. And if you're like so many people, it's really normal to have this experience of, there's my hamstrings, oh, I lost them. There they are, oh, they're gone again. So be patient, that's really normal. Come back around to center. Step the hands to the floor, step the right knee back to the left, and let's come into a down dog or maybe a child's pose. Take 2 breaths. And then knees to the floor. Step your left foot forward. Come up to the top of the left thigh. Pause here. Now, I have my back toes untucked right now. You could do either. Try both ways if you're able and see what feels easiest to you to help you to sense hamstrings. Maybe you already have your left hamstrings, like, oh, that's on. Great if you do, but if you don't, think about pulling your left heel back. Okay, maybe we find them there. Can you think about pressing the right knee into the floor? And remember, you can put padding under that knee if you need it. We want to be comfortable. Maybe thinking about, what was it like to bring my heel to my butt here? Not by grabbing it with your hand, but actively like, ooh, what would it be like to lift that? Can you find the hamstrings there? Take your right hand to your left knee, stretch the left arm back, look over the shoulder, and take 2 or 3 breaths here. Can you keep your awareness of the hamstrings? Good. 1 more breath. And then left hand down, right hand down, step back. Let's come to downward facing dog. Forward to plank, and then lower the knees, so we're in a knee down plank. The shoulders are more or less over the wrists, or as close to it as feels comfortable for you. Feel your abdominal muscles here, so don't let your belly drop toward the floor. Your belly will naturally drop, that's fine, but don't let your spine move out of neutral. So think about breathing into your lower back. From here, if it's okay for you, bring your right heel toward your butt. Can you feel your right hamstrings? Lower down with the foot. Try the left. Lower down. Can you feel your hamstrings working here? You might feel abs, you might feel glutes, you might feel shoulders. Whatever you feel, let it go. Lower down to the mat. Lift up into cobra here and take a couple of breaths. Maybe letting everything soften a little bit, maybe shaking out a little, maybe looking over each shoulder a time or 2. And then press back one more time, down dog. And from here, begin to walk your feet towards your hands and come up to a standing position. Roll the shoulders back. Here's where we're going to use a chair or a table. A table would be better, actually, if you have it. But what I have here for you to see is a lower chair. So you may have to work a little bit to make this work. That's okay. Put your feet on the floor with your right foot in front of the left. So the left heel can even be behind the knee. My knee is forward. Begin to lean forward a little bit here. Now, I'm going to use my hands to help. If I have a table, I might not need to do that, but here, this low, your hands may be useful to help you. As you start to lean forward, see if you can feel your left hamstrings turning on. So I'm leaning forward and I'm turning slightly toward my left knee. Can you feel your hamstrings as you turn that direction? Now, lift yourself up. Stay low, so the torso is still angling kind of forward. The left knee is in front of my left ankle, or as much as you can comfortably in your body. And I'm turning slightly toward my left knee with my belly button. Can you feel your left hamstrings working here? So we want to feel something all the way from your butt down to your knee. If you touch those muscles, they should be working. If you're having a hard time with it, come out and in a few times, or you can repeat the exercise on the floor with the heels pulling back. As you stay here for another breath or 2, just notice you might also feel your left abdominal muscles working a bit, the obliques, to stabilize you. You might feel your left outer hip, and you might feel your left inner thigh. Good. Bring your hips back to, to the chair. I tell you, that is like, when you're really doing that, you will feel it. Once you get it, it's something. Especially if you're somebody who has done a lot of yoga and not a lot of hamstring work. It's a big, big feeling. Let's do that second side. Your left foot forward, your right leg back. Hinge forward. Feel your right heel on the floor and see if you can find those right hamstrings. Now, lift up. It's okay if you feel the quads a little bit initially as you get up. Don't stress about it. The weight is in the right heel. The right knee is forward of your right ankle. Can you feel your right hamstrings working? Turn a little bit towards your right knee with a belly button and see if you can feel that. You may need to stay lower here in order to make that happen. Couple of breaths here. And then hips back down to the chair or the table. Nice job. Let's go put this into action back on the mat. Oof. All right. Standing at the front of the mat, get the weight into your heels. Can you feel your hamstring muscles? Do you have a little more awareness back there? I do. It's okay if you don't. I always want to just keep saying that, but can you feel a little something different there? Maybe shifting a little more weight into the heels. Can you soften the fronts of the legs a little bit more? Nice. Let's move. Reach the arms overhead. Fold forward. Now, pausing in this forward fold, you may feel like the backs of your legs feel a little tighter, and that would actually be a good thing. Especially if you're somebody who could easily touch the floor, we want a little more tension back there. Lift up halfway and round the back, and then step your right foot back behind you, lower the right knee to the floor. Stay low with the hands to start this time on blocks or on the floor, and lean forward. Push your left heel into the floor and come up to the top of the left leg. Keep the forward lean. Can you feel your hamstrings here? Can you keep that as you start to bring your spine upright? Can you find your right hamstrings as well? Good. Lower your hands back down to the mat. Step back. We're coming right to downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, let's step the right foot forward, land the left knee to the floor. Rise up, bring the fingertips to blocks, find that forward lean. Find the back of your right leg. Maybe come up to the top of the thigh, keep the forward lean. Do you have those right hamstrings? Can you keep that as you come up into your lunge? And can you find your left hamstrings? Try turning your torso slightly to the right. Maybe let the right knee even drop slightly inward. That can help here too. Good. Hands down, step forward. Lift halfway, round your back, and fold. Rise to stand, arms overhead, hands to the heart. We've got one more little test to explore. Stretch the arms, weight in the heels, fold forward. Lift halfway. This time your left foot's going to step back and we'll pause right here. Let the right knee, as long as it's okay in your body, let your right knee be slightly forward of your right ankle. And let's drop the left heel like we're doing Warrior One. Some of you are already feeling your right hamstrings. Look for them here. Good. Now, use the hamstrings to help you come up. As you come up into this Warrior One position, can you keep your right hamstrings? Good. Hands come down. Step it back. Downward facing dog. Left foot steps forward. Right heel down. Lean forward here. Left knee a little forward of the left heel. Turn the belly button slightly towards your left knee. Get a little lighter on the fingers. Feel your hamstrings as you rise. Let the arms reach. Warrior One with hamstring engagement. See what you can notice. You can even see, can I find my right hamstrings here too? When you do this, we're taking so much of that work off of the front of the leg, what tends to do so much for us. You might even be able to feel that here. Lower the hands back down. Step forward. Come all the way up to stand. And pause for a moment and feel. Can you feel the muscles in the backs of your upper legs a little bit differently? Even if you just have slightly more awareness here, that's a big win. Let's come to a resting position for the last couple of moments. Weight in the heels, arms reach, fold forward, lift halfway, step back for our last down dog together. And then from here, you get to make a choice. We can come to a comfortable seat. You might lie down on your back. Maybe there's another position you'd like to take to rest for a moment. So as we settle in here, you might take a moment to scan through your body and see, what do I notice? Our mind creates our experience based on the information that we're receiving through our senses, based on where we put our awareness. It's kind of like if you're on a plane and there's a baby crying and you're really annoyed about the baby, all you can hear is the baby. So we tend to put our awareness where we have the most habitualized attention. Like if you know that your quads are always working, you may always feel your quads working. It's simply bringing our awareness to these muscles, to the hamstrings, will get our brain using them in a different way. Now, the next step from here is you can repeat this class another time in the future. Or maybe now as you start to move through your day, you might be a little more aware of the hamstrings. Maybe the next time you do a yoga practice, you'll be able to engage and use those hamstrings a little bit differently. And one thing that will almost always work to wake them up is the lying on the back and pulling the heels back toward you. And then take just one more moment of quiet together. I'll stop talking and let you breathe. Good. If you have a little more time and you'd like to stay longer, please do. Otherwise, we are right at our 30-minute mark. I really want to thank you so much for being willing to explore different things, try different ways of working with your body and with your yoga practice. It can be so helpful to take our brains out of these patterns, to take our bodies out of these patterns that we're really used to doing. So see how it feels, and see what you notice, and then move forward. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to being with you soon. Take care in the meantime.